lose count.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome. It's Coeur d'Alene City Council. It is August 5th, 2025. And roll call, please.
English,
Here.
Wood,
Here.
Gookin,
Yep.
Miller, Gabriel,
Here.
Evans.
Here.
My own free
Thank you.
pen from already.
And our invocation tonight, Paul Van Oy, welcome. And thank you for coming out.
And thank you. Thank you very much. It's good to see everyone on this beautiful day. It is a beautiful community, and we're so thankful to be here, aren't we? Father, thank you so much for the blessing of being here in this community and for the blessing that you have provided to our community. Thank you for our mayor. Thank you for our council members. Well, I ask your blessing upon them, each one, tonight and going forward as they make decisions in leadership for this community. Lord, we're thankful for our families. We're thankful for our first responders. We continue to grieve for those that are grieving and bring our support, Lord, by your grace to them. Use us for your glory, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Mr. Gookin, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Thank you. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Any amendments to the agenda, Council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move. I'm sorry I did not come fully prepared. Let's see, this would be an action item number H6, which is approval of setting a public hearing and setting the high dollar amount, which is presented by our finance director. I would like to move that item after executive session.
I can second that motion.
Discussion.
And, yes, Mr. Mayor, the reason for this is because these contract negotiations are ongoing, and our current budget as it is proposed has a percentage increase amount set in it, and I wouldn't want to approach further negotiations with our associations in bad faith.
Council, any comments?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can support that. I mean, it doesn't mean that we won't set the high water mark. It doesn't mean that we won't take action on an item, but it just means we'll have more information before we do.
Mr. Tymeson, do you have any comments on that? Do you see any concern at all?
The proposal that's coming forward from staff includes the maximum amount we can take in property taxes, and thus any changes that are made in the negotiations won't necessarily impact what we can ask for. We also have the general obligation bond payment in there, which is an estimate, so it is naturally higher. So as I would look at the statutes, I would suggest that we are really informing the constituents, the taxpayers, that we are looking to take the maximum amount allowed under code at the 4% greater income in property taxes to the city. And so anything with the negotiation really won't impact the high water mark, in my opinion.
Follow up?
Christine?
I appreciate that, Troy. I appreciate the explanation, but there was a dollar amount included. And I guess that's what kind of threw me off.
There was a dollar amount for the high water mark.
Uh-huh.
Sure, so we have to, put that dollar mark. I could state to you it could be $200 million in my opinion, because we would use everything that we ever had to try to get there. But the big important piece, in my opinion, is the fact that we are looking to share with the public a 4% increase in revenue from property taxes greater than what we received last year. Because we do not have the budget locked down. You have another workshop on it, so you can't come above that as per this high water mark. You could not, if we had 1% increase in revenue from property taxes, you couldn't change that the first meeting in September.
Mr. Gookin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my point is, I like to make my decisions based on data, and right now I don't have the data for the negotiations, that's what's going to be presented to us in the executive session. And did you
And
want
my
to say
counter
something?
to that would be, there's nothing we can do with the negotiations that would change this high water mark. So what I'm attempting to confirm is we cannot legally ask for more than 4% in revenue increase to set the high water mark. That's what's in this number. Expenses we'll get to control as we bring forward the details. You have a workshop coming forward on that as well. And yes, we do not have a agreement with the two associations we're working with. So none of that would change even after executive session for the setting of the high water mark.
Katie, would you like to
I
chime
just
in?
want to add, it sounds like there is a concern about the expenditure side of the equation. The revenues are the important piece in this high water mark to give notice to our constituents, as our city administrator mentioned, of a property tax increase. If we were to have a change in expenditures, that would go through the process. The amended budget process is typically how we would deal with that if they exceed what we put out in our high water mark resolution. So we're looking at doing an amendment to the current fiscal year in the next month. Actually, in September, we'll do the ordinance then. So the expenditure side of the equation, we can't really have if we don't have where we are with negotiations and wages and benefits.
I'll say, just to clarify, so I understand, I hear everything you're saying, so that if the negotiations come out and we make a decision that's different from the projected COLAs that are already in the budget, that doesn't affect this number, but it's allowed.
Correct, yeah, we would, the amendment is how we would deal with that. So right now, we're on the process to adhere to Idaho code we have the resolution, we notice it, and then we have the ordinance a certain number of days later. The ordinance cannot be higher than this resolution that I've brought forward tonight, but there is a process to acknowledge changes in our budget because, the budget's only good for about 5 minutes, and then we have more information and that sort of thing. So tonight, it's a procedural part of following that Idaho code, so.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're free to negotiate, we're not locking anything in, and we're going to be fair. So that was my point. I appreciate the clarification. I withdraw my motion.
I withdraw the second.
Mr. English, would you like to?
Well, I was just going to say that I think we should stay with it as it is on the agenda. I don't like these things where we kind of go into something and then make a decision and kind of everybody's gone, but I'm happy that they've withdrawn, and I think that, so I guess, but it was good to go through the exercise. Okay.
Thanks, you guys. Public comments. This is a time when you guys get to vent on us or bring some fun stuff to us, some information. And I have 4 people signed up, so I'm going to call you if you'd come up. You have 3 minutes. There's a little ticker over there. Mike Sims, Coeur d'Alene. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening. I know you're probably not happy to see my face again, but here I am. I wanted to point out to you that there's one thing constant in life, and that is change. We have had some drastic change on Atlas Street with traffic. When I bought my home 12 years ago, yes, there was some traffic. It was tolerable. Right now, there are 9,000 cars a day. This is from streets and engineering that pass in that 1 mile stretch. That's 375 cars per hour average, or 6.25 cars per minute. Now, it doesn't happen like that all day long. It's a 24-hour period. I had no idea that there was 9,000 cars. I knew there was a lot, but I didn't know that much. Now, we've been pleading with you guys, and you have the responsibility and you have the ability to take care of the people that you signed up to take care of in this city. There's 200 of them that are putting up with this, and we have something new to add to it. I've wondered why I was having trouble breathing, sinusitis, and all this kind of stuff. My doctor, when I told him the traffic and stuff that we have here, he said, it's most likely emissions pollution. Well, 9,000 cars, hello. So I went around and talked to some of the petitioners that signed up on this. A lot of them are having the same trouble. Now, these things, the health problems from this can escalate to a point to where people are going to wind up with cancer, whatever. Now, would you think that if this is even a possibility, how can you not take the power that you have and change this situation? Because the information I gave you on traffic, you can abate the noise, you can abate pollution by slowing the speed of cars down. Now, Atlas, this stretch of Atlas, that 1 mile stretch, is absolutely perfect spot to do this because you're not going to impede traffic one iota. It's a straight shot for 1 mile. Do you know that it will take less than 1 minute longer if they were doing the speed limit at 35 to go 25 miles an hour through there? Less than 1 minute. Now, is that a big deal concerning all the ramifications of what this is about? You know, I would think that in the future, if you guys don't act on this, that a lot of people get sick in the future from this, and they can prove that it came from the pollution emitted, that could open up one heck of a lawsuit against this city. I'm the last person in the world to even think about or want to even think about a lawsuit. But I had some of these people say that to me. So I'm just asking you guys, would you please really put your thinking caps on and dig down into your souls and do something about this? You have the ability, you have the power, and it should be done. 200 people, plus their children that are playing in these backyards. The pollution coming off of automobiles, as I've given you new information, comes off in a horizontal nature before it can go vertical. Okay, where does it go? Right into the backyards of all these homes that are on this petition and across the street in the way that people that I couldn't get their names on the petition. You've got to give the police do not have the manpower or the ability to police that street like it should be done to slow traffic down. It's not such a big deal. It's really pretty easy. So I guess my 3 minutes are up.
Thank you, Michael.
Anyway, thank you, but please think about it real hard.
Next up, Ted Turrenton. Welcome, Ted.
Good evening, Council. I will say, I'm having a little trouble hearing you guys. I don't know if the volume could possibly be turned up on your microphones, but at any rate, I spoke with, or I emailed Councilman Gookin, and he informed me that the negotiations are still ongoing with the city employees. And I just wanted to continue on some comments that I've made in the past about my personal requests for or recommendations for changes to the next contract. Sick leave pay, no accrual of unused days or rolling over to vacation hours. I believe the employee's good health should be reward enough for not having to use all of his sick leave days. 3 weeks vacation after 15 years of service, 4 weeks after 20 years, and then capped. Yearly tool allowance be cut in half to $250. Employees to contribute something for their medical, dental, vision insurance premiums if they are not already. Citizens portion of the HRA VIBA contributions be reduced or eliminated. City-provided life insurance coverage amounts cut in half to $25,000. Eliminate annual 5% pay increase for average performance, or at least require exceptional performance. Annual market adjustment pay, that's COLA, I guess, should be tied to what the cost of living is in this area, of course. I'm sure that's what's happening. Eliminate one-time gift payment of $2,500 for each city employee. 10% pay increase for each promotion up through levels in job classifications is excessive, I feel. City employees who want to better themselves in life should pay for their own secondary education classes, not city taxpayers. That would be the tuition reimbursement. I have no proof, but I believe there are few, if any, private sector employers in Coeur d'Alene who can afford to provide their employees 19 employment compensations in addition to their wages, as does the city. At a minimum, base wages and salaries should be increased only in the new contract with no additional extra wage benefits. We have nothing but respect, support, and admiration for the job city employees and first responders do. We just feel they are overcompensated for it in some areas, and savings could be had for the taxpayers by reducing personnel costs, which is one of the city's largest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. All the way from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, Mike Gridley. Come on down, Mike. Welcome.
Good evening. Well, I'm here to speak on behalf of employees. I think you ought to pay them more. When I started at the city 20 years ago, I started for half of what I was making in the private sector. And the previous speaker said he had no evidence of what is being paid out there in the private sector compared to what's being paid here. And I think that's one of the misconceptions is that everybody that works for the government is overpaid and lazy and not working, getting all these benefits. And what I see, you could take any one of these department heads and professionals here in the room right now, take them out in the public sector, and they'd make twice as much. I'll bet anybody that much money. Take the building official, Ted Lancey, out into construction, and any of his department members, they'd make a lot more money. Take one of your attorneys out, they'd make a lot more money. Take any of your professionals, and not just your professionals, but staff. They work here because they care about the city, they like doing what they're doing, and they care about the community. It's kind of like you guys. And so I originally came here to express my gratitude and support for the budget increase. According to the assessor, I live in $1 million house now, so I'm okay with the 3% tax that I'm going to have to pay on that. I think it's $185 a year or something. I'll be okay with that. And you've got some items on your agenda tonight, infrastructure, but don't forget that I think the number one asset of the city are your employees. And we've got public safety that do a great job. But we also have the people that are doing all the other things that keep this city running and keep the streets, keep the planning, keep everything else going strong. So I want to support that. I also want to thank you and express my gratitude for having elected officials, you guys, who we can trust. You're not beholden to any particular agenda of any particular party or anything else that I'm aware of. You are driven by a care and concern for the public and for the general good of everybody who lives here in Coeur d'Alene. That's my observation. I've only lived here 25 years, but that's what I've seen. So I want to thank you for that. Keep up the good work. And so I think that's it. I support the budget, but again, I think your greatest asset is not the streets, not the sewage plant is great and the water's good, but don't forget the guys and gals that run all that and keep it going.
Good recovery. Good recovery.
Thank you
Mike.
for your service.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Next up, Sarah Welsh. Welcome, Sarah.
Good evening, council members. My name is Sarah Welch, and I am the Early Learning Coordinator from the United Way of North Idaho. I also manage the Child Care Scholarship Program there, and I'm here today to voice a strong support for the proposed amendments that you'll be hearing on Resolution Number 25-042 regarding the grant funding agreement for the United Way of North Idaho and the Community Development Block Grant. These proposed changes will help ensure the program remains effective and responsive to the realities families are facing today, and I urge you to approve these amendments and continue to supporting the well-being of Coeur d'Alene's children and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that didn't sign up wants to say a few words? All right. Moving on, announcements. Council, please. Mr. English.
Okay, well, I gave a little handout, and for the benefit of the crowd watching is talking about, and I'm a bit of a broken record on this, but asking that we take a look at the hospital district, and with the intent of perhaps closing, more likely maybe modifying that, and and I found this thing, which is just half a dozen quick bullet points that I'll mention. Idaho provides a structured process for the closure of urban renewal districts. Here are the key points. First thing, resolution of intent. A local government must adopt a resolution intending to close the urban renewal district and share this with the agency. Second is a joint meeting. The local government and the Urban Renewal Agency commissioners must hold a joint meeting to discuss the dissolution. And that's, I mean, the really critical is, and this is a new law, just went into effect July 1st, so I mean, it gives an orderly process, and we can go in there, take a look, and I don't know if they're, where Kootenai was heading, a few years ago, is the same now, and part of it is, I mean, you could close it, you could leave it alone, but you could also amend some of the boundaries or something. If the city or county decides the agency is no longer needed, they can pass an ordinance to close it. No new projects. So once you've put this really in place, the agency cannot initiate new projects or take on additional financial obligations. Then the next point, if you really went down that road, revenue allocation, fire protection districts, and ambulance service districts will not have their financing impacted by new revenue allocations created or modified after July 1st, 2025, but that district is in place. These steps ensure a systematic approach to the closure of urban renewal districts, maintaining the integrity of urban renewal process while allowing for the necessary adjustments to property tax revenue allocation. Now, I'm going to ask that we direct staff to prepare a resolution, and we can take a look. It would put the process in. We would have that joint meeting with them. It may or may not get to fit into this year's budget, probably not for this year exact, but I will tell you from doing a whole lot of budgets, and the county auditor is at any time, as was mentioned, can go in, amend the budget, and at any point, if we ended up that, there's a couple hundred extra thousand that we could get from that, I know that we can put it to good use. So anyway, that's what I'm asking for, support to direct staff to just start that process so we can have the actual discussion.
I'll second that for discussion.
Well,
Is that a motion?
Sure, okay, yeah, direct staff to,
It's
okay.
not on the agenda.
We can't
Okay.
do a motion for that, can we?
It's not on the agenda.
You can ask the
You can
mayor.
ask.
No, the mayor can direct staff to do anything.
Direct staff.
Sure.
That's
We'll
good.
take a look at it.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks,
this
that's all I
helps a
ask.
lot. Gives
And
us
then
some,
we'll,
right.
get it going. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
You guys good with that? Troy, put that on your list, okay? Thanks. Anyone else?
That was enough, okay.
You guys? Good. All right, moving along. Consent calendar, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah.
English.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next up, Council Bill 251015. We're going to talk about money. This is about our Zion's public obligation bonds for the fire trucks. And supposedly Daniel Quaid's here, Holly Troxel.
Somebody.
All right, somebody had to have a suit on, come on.
Supposedly, huh?
Well,
I know.
no tie, I didn't recognize him right away. Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. We have been working with the city, as you know, as your municipal advisor, on working through the process of the general obligation bond that was passed by voters. And I wanted to just spend a little time with you this evening, updating you on where we're at, how we're doing relative to what we told voters that we would be doing. And so walk down that a little bit. And where do we go from here in terms of the process as we are, starting to get to the point of asking, for funds and for projects and entering contracts, where we're at in that process in terms of getting the funding to the city. So. So just quickly from kind of an overall market perspective, we've seen interest rates trend somewhat upward over the last several months, mostly driven by concerns about tariffs, concerns about, some of how that might be inflationary to the economy, concerns about recessions, concerns about wars, lots of things, right? There's just been lots of things that kind of been driving, the economy. So we've seen this kind of trend upward, but I would say the most recent data on that, with the revision of the labor statistics, if you guys have been following that, that we're starting to see rates turn the corner. You can kind of see that at the end of that graph, and start to kind of float back down. So, and I'll kind of share with you, well, what does that mean, right? What does that mean for our bonds? What does that mean relative to what we told taxpayers? And what does that mean from a tax impact perspective? But, the reality is that we're not far off from where we said we were on that. So I think that's positive news, and rates are going in the right direction, and we're getting very close to our ability to kind of lock those rates in for the city.
Michael, you are Michael, right?
I am Michael.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, can I get a definition of what MMD stands for?
You can. Municipal market data. It is the equivalent to the Dow Jones Industrial and the municipal bond interest rate market.
Okay.
So it's the index that we track for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. I kind of briefly talked about this. I think, again, what's starting to kind of stabilize this a little bit and is some of the data that now that the Fed has potential for being able to lower rates, right? I mean, they've been concerned about inflation. They've got that under control. That's the reason why they increased rates. And the labor markets and other things have been sticky for a long, long time. And so because of that, because of low unemployment, because of all the economic data we've heard, the Fed has been reluctant, despite, pressures by the president to lower rates. That, again, with that jobs report, has shifted the mentality and may shift the mentality of the Fed. And if you look at predictors in the market, they're predicting potentially 2 rate decreases. So again, from a backdrop of the market that we're going to potentially price in, right now there's downward pressure on rates. And so that sets us up in a good spot in terms of where we want to be in the market and in terms of, policy. Now, that doesn't mean something can't, shift the market, can't dislodge the market, but right now, the trends are in the city's favor. So I wanted to spend just a couple minutes with the council talking about what were that process we went through to get to the bond. What did we talk about with voters? And we have had a couple different points in which we've kind of interacted with the voters. One was the survey, right? We did a survey, and one of those things that we asked, right, is not only, the projects and what the city's doing, but, would you support a tax increase, right, to pay for these bonds? And in that survey, if you remember correctly, we asked if voters would support a $17 per 100,000 taxable value increase, right? To pay back, the bonds and make this investment in public infrastructure. That, of course, was refined a little bit when we had to put the number in the actual election resolution, right, that went on the ballot in terms of what we call current conditions, right, is what's required of the city when you go for an election. And current conditions at the time that we put this together was that we anticipated a 3.12% interest rate, which would result in a tax impact of $16.07 per 100,000, right? So below that $17 per 100,000 that we asked about in the survey. And as you guys know, that got support at almost 75% for the bonds itself. So where are we today? And I'll go through this graph really quickly for the council, but on the left-hand side, when we started talking about this, when we first came to the council and said, hey, look, here's where the markets are at. There's a desire to borrow $16.4 million. We were here at a January meeting talking about this, getting direction to run the survey. At the time, interest rates were about 3.21%. Total impact was 16.14 per 100,000. That black, again, is what we just talked about. That's what went into the election resolution itself at the 3.12% and that 1607. Later, we updated rates as I talked about with that rate graph, that there was some upward pressure on interest rates. And so they had floated up to 3.36%, and we're sitting at 16.24 in today. And this is before we had a big correction the last couple of days in interest rates, so this would be lower today than what I'm showing up here. We were at 3.32% and 16.21, again, trending down, and that has come down even more. So again, under the $17 that we spoke about in the survey, and very, very close to that $16.07 right now that we talked about or had disclosed on the election resolution. So again, we are holding up well, and we're well within what we have been discussing with voters. Any questions on any of that?
Well, I think I want you to be my financial advisor. I mean, that was really
It's good, and it's good news, right? We want to be able to, articulate something to the voters in terms of what it's going to cost them and come in as close as we can to those costs. So I am very happy that, this has gone well and the rates have held up well for the city on this process.
Michael, just a quick kind of a bigger view, because
yes, Mayor.
I'm already in the weeds. Kind of back up and talk about what people have offered to pay so much, $16 per 100. To do what? Give me the bigger picture. What was done with the money, and then why are you involved in it? Can you ballpark that?
That's a fair point, Mayor. Thank you for that question. So, to kind of back up in this process, our engagement in terms of helping the city is to get you access to those funds that the voters approved, right? The voters said, hey, we allow you up to $16.4 million to borrow money, right, from the municipal bond markets to pay for the investments that were outlined in that election resolution, right, which is investing in public safety, for the city. And I know there's some conversations tonight about purchasing some fire engines as well as some remodels of a station. And so my job then is to help the city navigate and get those funds, right, and get access that to the market. And so we'll talk a little bit about kind of the remaining schedule, but we are probably 2/3 of the way through that process. And now we are kind of getting to the point where we're ready to have action taken this evening, which is why Daniel Quaid is here in terms of the next step of going and getting those funds for the city.
Thank you.
I have a question too, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Michael, I noticed up there in the gray bar, it says taxable market value includes URA. Randy, is the bond revenue, does that go to urban renewal and the city, or is it exempt from, you know the answer to this, Mike?
I do.
Okay.
And if I may, comment on that. So the reason we say includes URA, that means that city gets to actually tax the URA value and get revenue for the bonds, right? Which is not true of your other taxes, right? So if you think about the city taxes that we're talking about this evening, that increase, those URA values are exempt, right, from that, you know, and those, any revenue that's collected against that goes to the urban renewal. So thank you for that clarification. In this case, it's the opposite, right?
Good.
There was a rule that was passed in 2008 that changed that allowed, said any voted bond, whether it's a city, county, or a school district, gets to include urban renewal and collect taxes off of that value.
And we can thank former Mayor Hammond for sponsoring that legislation.
Good questions. Thank you very
Thank you.
much for this.
See, Woody, I
Oh, I'm sorry.
had one more. It's
Yes.
just that in terms of this timeline, and I'm not quite sure when things fall into place, but you mentioned, you know, sounds like the very real possibility there might be a couple of rate decreases from the Fed.
Potentially,
Is,
yes.
would we, if it just went along its merry way, would we likely get maybe one of those? Is there any advantage to trying to wait a little bit to capture that, or would we, it would be offset by waiting? So, the cost of waiting.
Well, if I could predict the market, I'd probably be sitting on a beach somewhere as we speak right now. I think a couple comments around that, Councilman English. One, thinking about the property tax cycle, right? One of the things that we're trying to set the city up for is the ability to certify taxes in the fall,
Yeah,
right, for
okay,
collection.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you delay past September, right, we can't certify for it until the next September, which means you can't
Oh.
collect a revenue for it
That answers
until
that,
the final
okay.
year. So that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is there's no guarantees, right? It's always, political posturing. So right now, yes, the data is setting us up to say that we think that there could be, 2 rate decreases this year by the Fed, but that's happened before, and those haven't matriculated because something else has happened, a new tariff. There's just too much uncertainty in politics right now. And the other thing that we're also facing right now, as we've faced every single year, is kind of the infighting about the budget, right? And whether or not we're going to increase the debt limit and not increase the debt limit, and we're getting ready to face that as well, which is an unknown.
And
for us.
actually, I'm, reassured by all of these different scenarios at points in time are just pennies up or down. So the $16 something is likely it's going to fall in the $16 something range.
Correct. Yep. So it's gonna move around. But
Yep.
the reality, of course, in the message is that we're very, very close to what we said.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good questions. Thank you very much for this. So I wanted to kind of end this off with, and you kind of led into this a little bit, and what's the steps going forward? Are we going to kind of continue what the city has already continued with this process from a transparency perspective, right, with the public and the staff? And so going forward, considering that the council passes the bond ordinance this evening that Daniel Quaid is going to talk about, we would move forward in going to the market. We're targeting August 19th as the day that we go to the market. So what does that mean? That means that's the day that we take orders for the bonds. That's the day that we lock interest rates. That's the day that we have no longer any interest rate risk, right, is on that day. And I know you guys have a council meeting that evening, and so we will prepare, staff with a report in terms of how that went, and they can provide to you guys that evening. But in terms of how we make sure that this is a good process, and again, Mayor, you had asked kind of our role in this as the city's financial advisor, is to make sure that we are doing all the correct research, that we're looking at what's happening in the markets, and that when we go to sell those bonds, or in this case, Piper sells the bonds, that they are market rates, right? That they match up with our expectations of of what the market should be bearing for those rates, and that we are getting the best deal for the city. And we do that through a couple different, avenues, right? One is, what are those market comparables, right? We get to do the research and things, and because the market is constantly active, right, there are other deals that we can look at to give us direction on where we should be. Every day in the market's a little different, but it still gives us good direction, right, in terms of what that starting point's going to be. Looking at key economic data, right, what are those trends? Are those trends in our favor, right? Can we push a little harder on getting lower rates for that? And are we meeting the goals of the transaction, right? We talked about the tax rate goals, the proceeds goals, that we're meeting the tax cycle. All those things are things that we help kind of advise the city and staff throughout this process to make sure that we are getting the best deal we can for the public at the end of the day, who is going to be paying the taxes on this bonds. And so we'll go through that process, and we have what's called a pre-pricing that happens the day before we go to the market. Which really means just kind of that check-in with the underwriter, discussing all the data, discussing the market, making sure that it's a good market to sell in, right? That we don't have something that has disrupted the market, right? There are things that disrupt long-term trends, right? And that's one thing that we can't really wait our way out of. But there are those short-term things that disrupt the market for a short amount of time, right? And we see these, significant upticks, and you've seen that in stock markets, right? If you follow the stock market, and those things kind of, flow back down once we're past the event. So we will work with the underwriter, work with the staff, make sure that we have a good market, a solid market for which we're pricing the bonds in for you guys.
Michael,
Yeah.
you've come before us before when we wanted to refinance the bonds. What I don't recall, maybe there'll be an opportunity in the future to refinance. I don't recall if we're locked into a time frame before we could even consider that, if rates did dip quite a bit.
So, yes, Councilwoman Wood, thank you for that question. In this case, because the bonds are so short, right, because we're only doing 10 years for the bonds will be non-callable. So the tradition in the municipal, excuse me on that, the tradition in the municipal bond market world is that there's some call protection for investors, right, which is typically 10 years. And then after 10 years, so that, going back to your wastewater bonds, right, they were out much, much longer in terms of a total term, which gave us that opportunity to come back and refinance that. Now, the shorter term also means we're shorter on the curve and also getting the benefit of lower rates as a result of that as well. So there won't be an opportunity to refinance these bonds.
Thank you.
Good questions.
I have a quick one.
Yes, Mayor.
You just mentioned the stock market and bond market, two different animals, or is it just the bonds are longer or the stock?
Two different animals in the sense that, there are different types of investments, but they also work against and for each other depending on the market, right? So if you think about how the market thinks, right, in terms of bonds as kind of these safety, right? Safety of investments, safety and value. You're investing in a city, right? It's going to be stable, right? The stock market is kind of this long-term, investment on well, how are things going to go? I think things are going to go up, right? I'm going to make a bet, on the stock market. And so when we see challenges in the stock market, we see funds flood to the bond market, right? And so if we start to see earnings misses and other things, and you start to see the stock market go down, people get out of quote-unquote riskier assets, right? And they go flight to safety, flight to quality, right? And we see that move from those investments to bonds. So if you kind of go back to Econ 101, right, supply and demand, if there's a lot of funds going into the bond market, so high demand, right, but not a lot of supply, therefore you can lower the price or lower the yield in those markets.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions along that? Good questions. Appreciate that so much. On the day of sale, just kind of briefly for the benefit of the council, we will be working with staff. One of the things that is a benefit of technology, right, is we can share the process, with staff as we're going through it, meaning that there is a platform in which we will share out to both Tymason and Ebner for their ability to view the pricing as we're going through it, watch orders coming in, understand the demand for the bonds, and what that pricing flow looks like. Typically, we go through about what we call a 90-minute order period. And I know that seems quick for $16.4 million, but that's just, there's some pre-work that gets done, right, to kind of say, hey, this is coming, and then it's just an opportunity for people to kind of put those orders in. And so we'll take 90 minutes to take orders, and at the end of that, we'll assess where the orders are at, and we'll work with the underwriter on that. If there's over demand, right, meaning that, again, back to supply and demand dynamics that we hope happens, that gives us some negotiation room, right, to lower rates from what we go out. If the opposite is true, if we get in a tougher market and we don't have the support, then a couple things can happen. One, we might have unsold balances. That doesn't mean the city won't get all of its funds. It just means we have to have a negotiation and discussion with the underwriter on how much. And if it's only 20%, then we typically would ask the underwriter to underwrite, right? Take on the risk of the remaining 20%, still deliver the $16.4 million to the city, and they take the risk on owning that. Now, if it's 50%, we're probably not going to do that. We probably would have to make some adjustments to the pricing to draw that in, or ask the question if today's the right day, right? To price the bonds. And so that's, again, our role with the city is to help you guys navigate that and make sure that we have an appropriate pricing and appropriate process in place for getting you guys the best deal. If we do have a pricing that goes well and we like what we see in terms of the rates and the offer by the underwriter, then staff will give a verbal nod that says yes, we can kind of move forward with that, and you'll enter into a purchase agreement. And I imagine that Daniel will talk a little bit more about this in the ordinance and kind of what that means and the parameters that's going to be around that. But once that purchase agreement is signed with the underwriter, you've transferred the risk to the underwriter, right? At that point, right, you've locked in your interest rates, whatever we agree to on that pricing day. And then we have effectively a couple of weeks from the point of locking in rates and pricing to when we deliver the funds to the city. And that's just to kind of finalize legal documents and closing documents that Danielle Quaid and her firm will be working with the city on to get finalized before we close on those funds.
Kenny?
Michael, in the past, we've had no problem selling these bonds, right?
Yes. No.
Like very quickly, right?
I am not anticipating any problems. We don't have a bond rating back yet. That's going to happen still. This week we've gone through the bond rating process. I fully expect that the city will be rated very, very well, like it's always been rated. The other benefit that we get from being Idaho is just scarcity, right? As you know, it's really, really hard to get approval in this state to issue bonds, and because of that, typically from a diversity perspective, people want Idaho bonds and need Idaho bonds in their portfolios. So unless barring a market that's difficult, it won't be difficult to sell these bonds.
I have a quick question. You used the word negotiation on price? Or
Yes.
could you just give a little, it's not like buying a used car, is it? I mean, where they go back and forth? Or is it more, this is what you guys do?
It's a little more complicated than buying, well, I don't know, buying a car these days is pretty complicated, but there is a process, right, that we go through, meaning that you set a price in the morning for the bonds that we think is the correct price, right, for the rates given, all that information that we talked about, right, the research that we've done, previous markets, what's priced in the market, and that gets put out to the market, right? And so it is a little bit of a negotiation, right? Where the underwriter works with their investors and say, hey, this is what we're offering. Do you want this? Some people may say yes. Some may say, well, no, I'm in if, rates were a little bit higher, right? Like if you think about the investor's perspective, right, they want a higher rate of return or the highest rate of return, possible. And so it depends on, right, what happens with those, dynamics, right, with the investors. And then the other negotiation piece of that is at the end of the pricing, right, meaning that now we have information, right? We have how many people are interested, right, in buying those bonds. So back to your car example, right? If 5 people wanted the same amount of car, well, the dealer has leverage at that point, right? And we're looking for the same thing. If we have lots of buyers willing to buy the bonds, then we have leverage for negotiation on the final rates that get set for those bonds. So it is a process that we go through.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Yes, good questions, very good questions. Anything else? So this is the screen, right? It's called Game Day, and I know that's small, but I'll explain it, kind of what those blue bars mean, and what this process looks like. And so what happens is, we have $16.4 million of bonds, right? That is spread over, it's divided out into annual principal payments across that 10-year time frame that the city's going to repay that back, right? And each one of those individual years is an investment, right? So year 1 is a year 1 investment, year 2, all the way through 10, right? That gets displayed and sent out to the market, so to speak, right? For people to invest and pick the part of the curve that is of interest for them, wherever they are in the markets, whatever their needs are, and then they will put in orders for those bonds. And so in this particular example, that black line that you see, and I'm just going to step over to the screen really quick. Right here, this black bar that you see across here, that represents that total principal.
They can't hear you at home right now.
There should be a mouse over there.
Oh, sorry, thank you. So this black bar going across here represents that principal amount, that we have up to that amount, right, available for people to purchase or invest in, right? And so if we go, and this is kind of back to the negotiation piece, right? If we go above that bar, right, in this case, where we say we're 5 times oversubscribed or 2 times oversubscribed, that means we have more orders for that particular bond than we have to sell, right? And so then we go through that negotiation process that says, well, how do you weed people out, right? And you weed people out by changing the price, right? Lowering the interest rate to make people disinterested, or some of the buyers disinterested, right, in the bonds, because now we've lowered the rate, right? And so that's that negotiation process that we would go through. And this all be done in real time.
That's the wheeling and dealing part, huh?
The wheeling and dealing part, yeah. And this system will allow city staff to view it as it's happening, right? As orders are getting placed in the system, they'll be able to see that happen, see where there is oversubscription, undersubscription, so that when we have final conversations with the underwriter about any adjustments that we would like to make for that process, they'll be informed in terms of what that looks like. Any questions on that? Perfect. So from here, kind of the rest of the schedule, we talked a little bit about it. We'll receive the rating and the rating report on August 6th. That's done by a third party. In this case, it's going to be Moody's Investors in Service, right? We went through a process where city staff presented to the rating agency your credit profile, right? And they'll give us a credit rating, just like you would if you were a buyer of a home, right? And get a credit score. City will get a credit score. From there, that report, along with this document called the official statement, right, which is the disclosure document to investors that we've been working with city staff to put together, will go out to investors, right? That will give them the information that they need, right, to make an investment decision about the bonds and whether or not that's something that they want to invest in. And Piper will distribute that to their investor network and have those conversations with them and get them teed up for that pricing that we talked about on August 19th, right? So that's when we go through the actual process that we just discussed to lock in those interest rates for the city. From there, we'll have, again, closing documents, we'll finalize the official statement, and then September 3rd, bond closing date, which is just terminology in our world for when we deliver the funds, right? We collect the funds from the investors, and those go through the underwriter and delivered to the city and put in the bank for project expenses relative to the bonds. So that concludes my presentation to council. I will stand for any additional questions before Danielle comes up. If there's any final ones.
So Michael, I have a question for you back on slide 3. which was the, slide 3. I'm sorry, I didn't, one more. There you go.
Sorry about that.
So this is a comparison of 10-year treasury rates and the municipal
Market data, so
market data.
essentially tax exempt rates.
But you mentioned, you were talking about the rate decreases that they're talking about coming up. And that's a rate decrease in the funds rate, the federal funds rate. Federal funds rate is currently at 5 or 4.5 or something like that. But as someone who's invested in the bond market and lost money, there really isn't this go-around a direct relationship between the federal funds rate and the T-bill rate, the 10-year T-bill rate. So, I mean, if you had an overlay of the funds rate was 0 up until 22, and then it went up to 5. And it's still kind of holding steady up there, and the bonds are doing whatever they're going to be doing. So what is your predictor if the funds rate, which is just the overnight rate that they charge the banks, and there's no real correlation to this, do you see a correlation coming up you're making your prediction on?
There is, so I'll back that up and say, to say that there's no real correlation is incorrect. It's not direct correlation, no, right? You can't say like, well, if we move it up 15 basis points or 0.15%, that we will see an exact 0.15%. But remember, why the Fed controls that window, right, is economic direction and economic policy, right? So it trickulates through the economy. So if you change the overnight window for banks and increase their overnight lending or decrease their overnight lending, that trickulates through. That also sends a directional thing, and it may not be immediate in the market, but again, you start to see those trends, right? Rates started to trend up, right? Not exactly at the same lockstep as we've seen, but it does have impacts through the economy, and it's the reason why the Fed uses that tool to manage money supply, right, in and out of the market.
Right. And is there a correlation between the 10-year T-bill rate and the mortgage rate, the rate that the banks are currently charging for mortgages?
Again, from a trend perspective, yes. So not a direct correlation, but banks base a lot of their lending expense, right? Their cost of funds at the end of the day come from these types of investments, right? If they have to borrow in the overnight window because they made too many loans and they don't have enough capital, right? They've got to borrow from that overnight window. If that gets more expensive, right? Or their investments, and we saw this with the banking crisis, right? That because rates were dropping and the value rates were increasing and the value of their assets, treasuries that they had on the books wasn't as well. They were trying to sell it off, and rates for banks and everything else went up with that, right? So again, it's more of it is a trend and a predictor, right? Yeah. Just like we look at the consumer price index, just like we look at consumer confidence, just like we look at the PPI, all those things are not direct correlations to the economy, but they're indicators of what we might see, or likely the direction that we're going.
Okay, so we don't know, like, to go back to Councilmember English's question, we don't really know the future. You can't predict it, otherwise you would be on a beach. But if we could, and I mean, if it would be worthwhile for the city to hold off and wait and get those lower rates, you're saying that's not even, we should not even think about that.
Again, because it could, yes, they could lower rates. They could lower rates at their Fed meeting in September, right? And that, again, signals a direction, right, from the Fed that says that, hey, we think the economy is slowing down, right? We think that there's a recession coming. We think that there's challenges in the economy, right? But you still may see rates be elevated for a while before that, what the Fed is seeing in terms of the data and what they're trying to get ahead of, right, when they make their policy decision, and in terms of when that actually hits the economy, right? And so, that could be 2 to 3 month delay, and we don't know what that's going to be.
And that's kind of what I see here is when they change their thing, there's a lag, but it does follow those trends.
100%.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, great question. I appreciate that very, very much.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
I think we're there.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very, very much for letting me be part of this process. I've appreciated being able to work with the city, and we're looking forward to locking this in for you guys and getting those funds. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm Danielle Quaid. I've met most of you, all of you, actually. and I'm here to talk about the bond ordinance. So the bond ordinance is the document that authorizes us to move forward and sell the bonds and issue the bonds and kind of sets the guidelines for how that process is going to work. The mayor asked a question about kind of the big picture, and I think really the big picture is that, like we did in 2015, we're here to fund needed fire equipment and renovations to the fire stations, right? And that's what the public supported at that 75% level. You're kind of on a 10-year cycle doing these shorter bonds, which fits nicely with the useful life on the equipment, which is why we're again buying fire trucks like we did 10 years ago. So if you start at the very beginning of the ordinance, the question that authorizes the purchase of apparatus and equipment and then demolishing, rebuilding, renovating, expanding, and improving existing fire stations, that's the big picture. I'm just going to point out a few of the material provisions in the ordinance, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you have. So if you turn to section 2.01, you're authorizing the bonds to be issued in 2025, and it's in the principal amount of $16.4 million, and we'll get to the parameters on the interest rates, but obviously the voters approved it for a 10-year period. If you turn to section 2.08, that's kind of some of the preliminary actions and other actions outside of this ordinance that are being authorized. There's a notice of sale that'll be published in the Coeur d'Alene Press as required by Idaho Code that will occur before the actual sale of the bonds on August 19th. We will be, as Michael referenced, releasing to the market a preliminary official statement, which is the disclosure document that investors use to make a determination on if they're going to invest in the bonds. That document has a lot of information about the city and its taxpayers, et cetera. But as we know, general obligation bonds are, very secure because it's a direct levy the taxpayer, it goes into a fund, it goes to the investor. So you get the benefit of a great interest rate, a very, probably the best interest rate you get in the municipal market with a general obligation bond. But so the information in there is relevant, but they have a lot of confidence that they're going to be repaid. We also authorize that bond purchase agreement. That's what Michael was referencing happens on the day of the pricing. That's your agreement with the underwriter, which is Piper Jaffray. I know you've seen Eric Herringer from Piper Jaffray at your meetings before. So after all that negotiation happens that Michael was discussing, we'll enter into, and one of your delegated officers, which is the mayor, Troy, or Katie, will be able to sign that bond purchase agreement where they say they're going to buy the bonds and give us the $16.4 million in exchange. Probably the most material provision from your perspective is section 2.09. So we used to do the pricing on the day of the council meeting and bring all of the resulting information back to the council to make an actual decision. That's very difficult in the market. As Mike was explaining, like, one day can make a big difference in the pricing. So having to set the pricing around a council meeting was arduous and sometimes didn't result in the best results for the taxpayers. So about 15 years ago, the legislature adopted some legislation that allows us to delegate your authority to fix certain requirements related to the bonds to someone else. And as I mentioned, the three people that are delegated in the ordinance are the mayor and Troy and Katie to make those determinations. So if you look at that section 2.09, we're obviously restricted to the 16.4 million, which is what the bondholders approved, and the 10 years. But in addition to that, we have limited the interest rate to 4%. So if the total interest cost came in above 4%, we would have to come back to you to get further authority. As you saw on Michael's chart, we were at 3.32, and it hadn't moved very much during that January to July horizon, so we don't expect that it would ever be above that 4%, but that's the maximum interest rate that could be paid without having to come back to the council for further authorization. The other material provisions I'd like to point you to are in section Article 5, and that's just where you agree that you're going to levy the taxes, and that's what happens on the L2 that gets submitted in September, and why moving forward now allows you to get an extra year of levy, and then deposit those funds, like I said, directly into a bond fund that will go to repay the bonds. A few years ago, we had some situations where school districts were kind of floating their general fund with bond funds and commingling them. Not that they were spending the funds necessarily. ultimately, but they were keeping their general fund funded that way. And so that we changed the ordinance to make it very specific that that goes into a specific fund that then is protected by the special fund doctrine in a bankruptcy type situation, and just gives clarity on what funds are bond funds that go directly to repay. The last thing I wanted to point out is that these are tax exempt bonds. So there's IRS requirements related to those. It's pretty easy in this case because fire safety is obviously a public purpose, and that's the primary obligation for tax exempt bonds, is that they be used for a public purpose. But there are covenants in here that we will only use the funds for those public purposes. So that's all I have. Not as exciting as all the discussion of the market, but I'm certainly happy to stand for any questions.
Questions, council? Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Danielle.
Thanks.
All right, council, are you ready to rumble on this?
Make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 25-1015 once by title only.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Would you read the title, please?
Council Bill number 25-1015, ordinance authorizing the issuance and providing for the sale of general obligation bonds, Series 2025 of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, authorizing the manner of sale of the bonds, delegating authority to approve the terms, provisions, and sales of bonds, and providing for related matters.
So, Mr. Mayor, with that being read, I would move to adopt Council Bill 25-1015.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin,
Yeah, I'll do it, yeah.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
All right, we passed it. Thanks for all that time and effort, you guys, and the training session.
Go sell!
Yeah.
Sell!
All right, we're moving on. Resolution 25038, approval of professional services contract with Dowell for River's Edge PUD mitigation plan. And all the way from the City Street Department, Chris Mosley, welcome to town.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Today I bring before you a contract with Dowell, who is on our on-call services for traffic. They're an engineering firm out of, well, the local offices in Spokane, but this is for the River's Edge PUD. If you remember, originally when the River's Edge apartment complex was proposed, it was all single-family dwellings along the riverfront. Through some negotiations, we ended up getting that riverfront to put a trail, but in return allowed them a higher density with some more apartment buildings rather than the single-family dwellings that were originally proposed for there. So as a condition of the approval of that PUD, we asked that they fund a traffic mitigation study to look at what impacts they would have to traffic on Celtice Way, as well as the other growth that we're experiencing. So the traffic mitigation study would look at the traffic generated from River's Edge, as well as the background traffic that we're already experiencing and the growth of that. They would look at Atlas and Celtice, Riverstone and Celtice, and Northwest Boulevard and Celtice, and look at what improvements would need to be made in order to help mitigate the traffic congestion that we're experiencing and that we could experience in the future. The developer for River's Edge, Lance Douglas, is to pay for this, but the way that Dowell wanted to do this, because they've worked on these types of projects in the past, was that we pay Dowell and then we get reimbursed by Lance Douglas for the work. So the total price of the traffic mitigation plan is just over $27,000, and as soon as you give approval for that, they can get the traffic data collected and begin work on that. So I would stand for any questions.
Questions, council? Mr. Gookin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, I just wanted to make sure, so we get to pick the engineer, and then we will be reimbursed by them. That's definitely going to happen.
Correct,
by-
yes. The
by
way it was worded was that we get to choose who we want to use, and we pick them from our on-call consultant list. And yes, they have to repay us, or they would risk not getting approval for, as far as I know, I don't know if they've even signed the development agreement yet.
Wait, so they haven't signed the agreement to pay us back?
And we haven't issued all of his certificates of occupancy either.
Okay, so we got something, all right, thanks.
Everyone freaks out, Christie.
Yeah, that was really, we know he's good for it, he's a
Everybody's
reputable developer. But I was just curious if there was a contract with him in writing.
There is, it's a development agreement. It has had a storied history. We've had multiple meetings with him, and he has indicated he will sign it. He has delayed that for his own reasons, but we are holding that over him in terms of certificates of occupancy as he develops that property.
And we also know that he did start a conversation with the Corps of Engineers and Department of Lands on his waterfront improvements that he wants to make, because he needs to do that during the dry season, or low water winter.
Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You probably answered this, and if you did, I apologize, but what's the duration of this? How long does it take to get the study done?
They figured it would just be a couple months.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, I would just say, I mean, this is a really valuable piece of information from everything we've been doing down there for years. I mean, everything from urban renewal, whatever. So, yeah, if you had to kind of pick 3 intersections in town to really take a look, I mean, that'd be way up on the list. So this, I think, is a real public benefit. And I guess for all of the studies, often it seems like they get into 6 figures. So this seems like a bargain, so I think we should do it.
I have
Sounds
just
like a
a
motion.
quick question. So this gives us the things that we need to do to mitigate, but it doesn't pay for any of that mitigation?
Correct. We would have to look at our traffic impact fees to pay for some, if we do get a mitigation plan that we think is reasonable and is going to steer us in the right direction, we'll be collecting a lot of impact fees from Lance Douglas's properties, as well as others like Coeur and all of those that are currently going on right now. So we would be able to fund many improvements, not something like ITD level improvements, but.
So in this kind of an agreement, he agrees to pay for the study, but doesn't have to pay for anything, any improvements that he impacts with his development? I mean, try and make it positive. I don't mean it to sound negative. I'm just trying to understand how that pathway works.
Yeah, in the past, we have done some situations where the developer would be responsible for mitigation, but usually the way that it works out is that they are responsible for their proportionate share of the impacts, which ends up being very low. When you look at how many trips per day a certain development is going to generate compared to all the traffic that's already out there, it's pretty minor amount. So on a recent one that I can remember, it was something like 6% that they would be required to pay.
And this would also include Coeur? Is it going out that far?
Well, it will use the traffic data for that. It's not going all the way out to Hutter Road,
Okay.
but they will be working with KMPO and their model to use all of available data for all developments that are current and planned.
Okay, thank
So
you.
given that, I would make a motion to approve resolution number 25-038, approving a professional services contract with DOWL for the Rivers Edge PUD traffic mitigation plan.
Second that.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Questions? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes?
Gookin?
Aye.
English?
Yes?
Wood?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Boy, the pressure's on the fire guys today. Lucas, come on up. You're going to spend some money.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks to the support of our amazing Coeur d'Alene citizens, we passed our GEO bond, and as they're talking about, come September, we'll be able to start looking into spending some of that money. This is specific to two purchase agreements. One is for 4 fire engines to the tune of $4.24 million. And the other purchase agreement is for 1 ladder truck for $1.981 million. And both purchase agreements would be invoiced and wouldn't have to pay for them until late September, as the time clock, as it works through the process anyway. So we wouldn't actually have to pay until mid to late September. But these are for the purchase agreements for those 2 rigs, or for those 2.
5 weeks.
For the 4 fire engines and 1 ladder truck. And as it says here, I'll just read how this works as far as the purchase agreements. If and when council approves, we will be invoiced approximately August 15th, and 30 days after that prepayment will be due the combined purchase of the $6.221,422,000. And on the back, that's not. Did you guys get the copy of the cost analysis versus prepayment versus? You guys got that? Okay. It is better to prepay, and our finance director made sure of that. And yeah, I guess past that, do you guys have any questions?
Well, what color are they going to be, Lucas?
They are going to be red. As far as I know, we're not going to deviate from the red with the pinstripe white.
There you go.
Right, okay. This is great. This is great. We're going to get them.
Yes, thank
You
you.
guys are all good with red, Kenny?
I'm very good with red, yes, sir. God did mean for fire trucks to be red, but what a great thing getting that 700,000 and change discount, number 1, and number 2, the comfort level with used fire equipment is great because they're one of the most known and trusted fire truck builders in the country, so there's a great comfort level with that.
Great. Very much appreciate your
And
support.
all the work, Lucas, on this is a pretty daunting task. You did it pretty quick, so well done.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Been shopping a while, huh?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 25039, approving 2 purchase agreements with Hughes Fire Equipment for 4 fire engines and 1 ladder truck to the total amount of $6,221,422.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to point out that even though we are buying these things, it says in the staff report the delivery time is 38 to 40 months. So we will not be able to ride in the back of them for a while.
It's a crazy amount of time.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Haverhill?
Yes.
Buchan?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Thank you all. Oh, let's talk about the poop plant. Michael.
Yay. Actually, I'd like to reiterate, it's a great poop plant,
That's right.
according to Mr.
Sorry.
Gridley, so let's hang our hats on that.
Sorry. I'll take my hits, you guys. Sorry about that.
And I'd like to start off with our pitch. If it's not from your body, keep it out of the potty. So now that that's out, the whole public has that. I
Do you
get the
have T-shirts?
I'm sorry, pardon?
You have T-shirts? So
I got stickers. I'll work on that T-shirt just for you, council member. I get to present the wastewater department's request for professional services agreement amendment number 5. This is for our solids building project, and excuse me. So what is amendment 5 for? We have some additional work that needs to be done with our electronics and programming and system integration of all this new equipment we installed in our solids building project. As you recall, this is as a result of, we had some computer problems last year, and some of that kind of triggered some additional work that's going to be required to get this project to the finish line. And so we asked HDR, who's the consultant of record on this project, to provide those additional services. They came back with a laundry list of work. We were able to negotiate it down to the amount that's presented before you tonight. Again, this is a multi-year project. This is also for engineering work. I don't wish for council to mistaken this as a contractor change order. This is an amendment to an existing professional services agreement. We would like this to be the last one. We asked, and they confirmed that it's going to be the last one. By golly, I'm going to work on that. They bring up more, we'll have some negotiations that we need to do. So, and with that, it is actually staff's recommendation that council approves professional service agreement amendment number 5 to the existing contract that we have with HDR for additional services associated with the solids building improvement project in the amount of $48,409.79. With that, I will entertain any questions that you may have.
Anyway, I have a question. So the 48,000 doesn't put anything in it, it's the planning of it, is that correct?
No. So when we put in equipment, our PLC, our computers need to talk to the equipment.
Okay.
And sometimes we need to have that communication back and forth. Well, that got all messed up when we had some computer issues that happened last year. And they're rebuilding that and reprogramming that to so that everything speaks to each other. That's about the easiest way I can explain that.
That's what this money is for?
This is what this money's for, is doing the actual programming work and system integrations.
Okay, thank you. Council, look for a motion.
Oh, I'm full of emotion. I would move to approve Resolution 25040, which is approving amendment number 5 to the professional services agreement with HDR Engineering in the amount of $48,409.79 for additional program work associated with the solids handling improvement project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Oh, the silence, by golly. Roll call, please.
No sweating over there.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Moving on. We're going to talk about swimming pools. Ted, from the building department, welcome. This is late for you, isn't it?
It is.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Not very often I get to come out and see you for code amendments, but today we are bringing forward a proposed code amendment for city code. And a little history behind this code amendment. We're bringing this forward because we're seeking to be more consistent with the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. Currently, we have 2 codes that are adopted. One is the city code came forward in 1974 and has produced a set of standards for how to protect swimming pools and barriers and so forth. In the meantime, we've also adopted the International Building Code, and by reference, it refers directly to the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. And so what we're bringing forward tonight is to bring some consistency between the 2 codes. The first amendment we're looking at here, in the first section, is to add spas and hot tubs to the city code so it becomes more consistent. It provides the same level of barrier requirements as required for pools. It also provides clarification that fences have to be constructed under the international codes. Currently, under the city code, there's no real standard for how to build the fence. under the international code, it's designed so you can't build it as a ladder. If you build it like a ladder, kids can climb over and get in and where they should be. Another change under this section is to modify the code for self-flashing devices. Currently, it just says they have to be secured. And so, under the international code, it's been reviewed and approved that these have to have, should have self-latching devices for the gate itself. And also, if you can see right here, one of the requirements out of the international code is the latch release. It's supposed to be 54 inches above grade. If it doesn't meet this height requirement, there's supposed to be a barrier or plate that goes around where children can't reach through and unlatch the gate from the outside. Another small change here is just to add language to reference the building code for pool-related structures. Previously, it just kind of referenced the outbuilding, and so this is more consistent with our current code adoption. We're also deleting, or recommend deleting section 820.040, as it's already addressed in other portions of the code. So this is just a little bit of cleanup here. Primary reason that brought this change forward is we have several builders that would like to use pool covers. And under the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, it allows for pool covers to be used in lieu of fencing. And so this provides an additional barrier or another option to the barrier requirements. So as you can see, the one on the left here is a spa that's installed. It's currently in a home that's under construction. And the pool cover, or the spa cover that's there, does meet the required safety standards. And this is a matter of getting the right weight, right load limit on the spa cover. And it also has latches that lock so children can't just open it. The one on the right is also the same building. What you can see here is along this fence line, under the current code, that would require that 6-foot fence to continue all the way around that pool. And that does create a bit of a problem, especially on this property, because they're right on a corner. And because of the vision triangle, we have to keep the fence low in the front. And so we had a bit of a conflict there. So what they've opted to do is look at this pool cover. And these are power-operated pool covers. And they're designed based on this size. They're 485 pounds, is the way they test them. And so it can support a 485-pound point load. Pools that are less than 8 foot wide can support 275 pounds and meet the standard. The last item we have here is to amend the final section, is just to address the general construction design. We already have adopted the International Building Code, and so we're just making that clarifying that item. So recommendations from staff is to approve amendments, Chapter 820 of the Municipal Code, be in conformance with the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. And
Thanks,
I'll
Ted.
stand for any questions.
Questions, council? Kenny?
Mr. Mayor, so if we adopted the international code and it references the international pool code, we still have to adopt the international pool code, correct?
So we've adopted the International Building Code, which has a direct reference to the International Pool and Spa Code. So it is adopted by reference already. And so we have two different codes. One would be our city code that we're looking at now, and one would be the international code. The international code just has other options or other allowances as far as the barrier requirements go.
Thank you.
Mr. English?
I just, of course, the number of swimming pools in town is one thing, but it's just a minute fraction of, I'm guessing, how many spas are in people's backyards and all of that. And I just, trying to balance how much of a new thing is it going to put on people? I mean, they're going to have to build, if they don't have a fence around their spa and all of this, how do we balance that out? I mean, it's kind of the old thing too, is don't pass something you're not able to enforce or don't intend to. Not saying we shouldn't, but just, I don't know, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we would have more spas than we would have pools in Coeur d'Alene. The one thing is that we've adopted the pool and spa code from the international code. It's already required that they have a fence or a cover.
Oh, okay.
And under the pool and spa code.
So if the typical one, like you see them out at the fair, if they bought it from a local dealer and they set it up, would they already kind of enforce some of that to do an install, or?
I'm not sure how closely the dealers are looking at that. I mean,
Well, they should be looking very close, it sounds like, if we do this, so.
Yeah, it's already in the city code currently
Okay.
to have a barrier that protects the spas.
Mr.
Well,
Mayor, I'd make a motion
I
unless you...
need to ask a question here. So you're telling me that if you already have a spa with no fence around it, you should put a fence around it?
Or you, under this current code, under the swimming pool and spa code, you can put a cover over it. And so that would be in lieu of putting the fence around it.
So do I have to have a permit to buy a spa to put in my backyard?
You don't. Under the state adopted code, essentially pools, spas less than 4 feet do not require a permit under state statute.
4 feet deep or 4 feet around?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion, let's see, here we are, to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 25-1014 once by title only.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Just real quick, a lot of us have had spas in the past. I got rid of mine. It's too much work. But those lids are very heavy, and it looks to me like you're just aligning city code with the international code.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Kuchen?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Thank you, Ted. Feel like I should go swimming or something.
That was the motion to dispense with the rule.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a move to
Sorry, thank
adopt
you.
Council Bill.
Still think I need to read the title once.
Sorry,
Oh, man, I fell off.
we're all
Sorry.
screwed up.
Just blame me.
Amateur haven't.
Take it. Read the title, please.
Thank you. Council Bill 241014, an ordinance providing for the amendment of sections 8.20.010, 8.20.020, 8.20.030, and 8.20.050 of the Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code, providing for the repeal of section 8.20.040 of the City Municipal Code, providing for the adoption of a new section of the Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code, 8.20.080, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for the publication of a summary of the ordinance, and providing for an effective date thereof.
Motion again, please.
We're good. Motion to adopt Council Bill number 251014.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Kuchen?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Thank you all. Thanks.
We still got a page.
Katie, the hot spot. You're going to bring us up to date on this.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This is part, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, this does not set the budget tonight. It is a step in the process to getting to the finish line of council adopting a budget ordinance and appropriating for the upcoming fiscal year. So in the resolution, we call this the high water mark resolution. Again, the focus is on property taxes. There are a number of codes surrounding how we have to follow a process and notice the amount of property taxes we can legally levy. And in this part of the process, I have included the 4% property tax revenue increase for the city, and just an important difference between 4% increase in taxes to our constituents versus a 4% increase in our budgeted levy revenues. There is a difference, and so there's quite a bit of misconception about Idaho property taxes. And you know, you hear a lot of comments about the city's growing, assessed values are increasing, the city is making money, and that's just not the case. So when assessed values increase, the city does not make more money off of those increases because we set an amount to levy, we don't work off of a set levy rate that is applied to assessed values. So the set levy amount is divided amongst the full tax base, which changes year from year based on assessed value changes, based on new construction. So the city does receive some revenue from the growth within their city and the new construction. However, it's very minimal in recent years. For example, last year, we had close to $100 million in new construction. We received $183,000 from that. So if you think of $100 million of, you know, what that brings into our city, the services we would provide for those new residents, that $183,000 is not going to cut it as far as public safety, streets, you know, all of the above. So just clearing up that misconception, because when I say here this resolution includes a 4% increase in taxes, that is a 4% increase in taxes revenue to the city, which is then spread across the whole market, which includes new residents in our market. So the new residents help share the burden of this increase, and it would not translate to 4% increase to our constituents. And so we talk quite a bit more in our budget workshops. And so, you know, if there are members of the public out there who still want more information about what this would mean, I would invite them to attend the next budget workshop on August 15th. So just wanted to clarify that there. So again, we show a 4% recommended property tax increase in this resolution. We also have an amount that we would levy for the debt related to the bond. And we have to state that we cannot levy more than what we are putting in this high water mark resolution. We can levy less, and so we estimated that bond payment higher so we wouldn't run into any issues where we can't make the bond payment if there were a significant turn in the market, but we expect that levy amount to be lower. So setting high, but then we'll revise it when we have the actual payment amounts from after the bond sale. So, and then one other notable change is this does include a 3.5% wage increase for all staff classes in the expenditure portion, and that is to reflect what has been offered within our ongoing negotiations with our Lake City Employee Association as well as our Police Officer Association. And our fire department is at 3.5% based on a prior contract. And that is reflected in this. A couple other changes. I did some work refining some of the revenue numbers. There were a lot of great questions during our last budget workshop on July 21st. So I revisited some of those smaller revenue line items and was able to make some revisions that did help the overall bottom line. The deficit in this high water mark, it stands at $2.1 million, and so hopefully during our process we can do some work to reduce that deficit even further. That deficit would be covered by the city's fund balances. Any questions on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Kenny?
What is our fund balance right now, Katie?
I'm projecting our fund balance to end up around 15 million at the end of the year. We have a number of items in our fund balance from prior year that were committed. For example, we just finished up a large police expansion project, and some of the revenues in that were committed in our fund balance from prior years. We also have just over $1 million in our settlement from the fire at the police storage and additional offices building. So that revenue was received prior year, so it was in our fund balance committed, and we are now spending that, hopefully getting that project well underway, and we will be able to replace what we can from that settlement money this year. So we are expecting a pretty significant decrease. About $3 million is what I'm projecting now, in a decrease in our fund balance going from last fiscal year to the current. Those were planned one time, and there were reserves available to cover those expenses.
And are you happy with that number?
I think the focus that I have is that we do not dip into our unreserved fund balances. So that is the goal. I think we're looking in pretty decent shape as far as not making an impact to our unassigned fund balances going into the next fiscal year. I think it's important that we look at balancing the budget in an ongoing sense, the operational budget, because I don't think that it could be the case in FY26 unless we look at, some measures to get that deficit a little lower.
Thank you.
Any questions? Hearing none. Look for a motion.
I'll do that, Mr. Mayor. Katie, you stated earlier that we aren't passing a budget, we're merely setting the high water mark, and I'm happy to make that motion. Make a motion to approve Resolution 25041, setting of a public hearing for September 2nd, 2025, and setting the high dollar amount of $152,558,290 in expenditure for the 2025-2026 fiscal year financial plan.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, anyone? Look for roll call, please.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Gookin?
No.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
All right, we passed. Thank you. Next up, Community Development Specialist Sherry. Welcome to the evening. This is to help Amendment Number 1 to fund granting agreement with United Way of North Idaho to expand the scope of services to child care scholarship program and authorizing staff to execute the amended agreement.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight seeking an amendment to a grant agreement that Council approved last August 2024, in which we allocated $34,462 from our Community Development Block Grant funds for Plan Year 2024 to United Way of North Idaho for their Child Care Scholarship Program. The program is designed to assist asset-limited, income-constrained, employed, they call it the ALICE population, which is working families who struggle to afford basic necessities despite being employed. We're here tonight. We would like to expand their scope of services in the agreement. We're not seeking to change the dollar amount allocated or the term, which the agreement ends September 30th of this year. What we would like to do is expand the scope to allow them to provide a scholarship for multiple children in a family. The way it's designed now, it just is able to assist or support one child per family family for up to 3 consecutive months. We'd like to expand that to allow if there's more than one child that requires childcare in a home, that we could allow United Way to go ahead and grant each child a scholarship for up to the 3 months. And then when we developed the agreement, we put in some parameters that they would provide an average of $350 per month up to 3 months. And we would like to expand that at this time to allow them to pay actual market rate for childcare, which is upwards about $1,200 a month per child. So we feel that making these changes to the scope of services will help United Way to more effectively support those ALICE families and reduce the financial stress on them. So at this time, we're asking for an amendment to the Community Development Block Grant Funded Agreement with United Way of North Idaho for their Child Care Scholarship Program.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Sherry, great presentation, and it's always such a really sad topic because parents are just in an impossible situation of trying to work and pay for childcare. Does anyone outside of the city limits qualify for these funds?
United Way also receives other grant funds that they can utilize for outside of Coeur d'Alene limits. Our grant money, since it's money coming to the city of Coeur d'Alene, we restrict our grant to only pay for Coeur d'Alene families.
Okay.
But they do have some other grant funds that they can utilize for those outlying areas.
All right, because we know a lot of people that are really struggling, actually aren't maybe living in the city, but we do have some. So I'm glad to see you bring this forward.
Any other questions? I have to ask this. This is babysitting money. No.
Good.
Yes.
It's childcare, yes.
Childcare, okay. All right.
Are you thinking of applying as a babysitter?
I'm just to learn these new words.
Great
you know.
babysitter.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 25042, which is approving Amendment Number 1 to the grant funding agreement with United Way of North Idaho to expand the scope of services in the Child Care Scholarship Program and authorizing staff to execute the amended agreement.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. All right, babysitting. Moving on.
Oh, roll call.
Roll call.
English?
An enthusiastic yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Kuchen?
Of course.
Sherry, thanks. How about one more?
One more.
For the road.
Tonight, we're seeking council's approval for us to submit the Community Development Block Grant Plan Year 2025 Annual Action Plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The city receives an annual direct allocation of CDBG funds each year from HUD, and we're expecting to receive $290,998 for the upcoming plan year that starts October 1. That's a slight decrease from what we received for the current plan year, which was $296,418. Each year, the city's required to complete an annual action plan, which outlines how the city plans to spend our CDBG funds, and then how we're going to fulfill our program requirements. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about what CDBG is, what some of the perimeters are of our activities we can select and use for the money. We're going to talk about the needs identified by the community for our upcoming plan year. We have a slide with our proposed budget, and then provide a opportunity for the public to submit comments on our annual action plan. So tonight, we're asking for council's approval for us to submit our annual action plan for plan year 2025 to HUD. Brief history, the city receives community development block grant funding from Housing and Urban Development Agency, known as HUD. And this funding is to support low and moderate income Coeur d'Alene residents through specific allowable activities. And the city first became eligible to receive the funds in 2007. So since 2007, the city's received about $1.5 million. So it's been pretty impactful for our community. Some key terms for CDBG are LMI, which stands for low and moderate income, and that is HUD's designation of a household whose total earnings are based on either 30, 50, or 80% of the yearly area median income. And for our county, Kootenai County, a family of 4, that median income is $97,500. And that determination just was published in May of this year. A sample of some of the eligible activities to use CDBG funds. We can use that for relocation and demolition, rehabilitation of residential and non-residential structures, construction of public facilities and improvements. We can use it to acquire real property, and we can use the funding to support public services. Public services were restricted at a maximum of 15% of our annual allocation to go to those support services. These are some of the eligible public service activities that HUD allows. This is not an all-inclusive list, but we have used the money for education programs, services for senior citizens. For example, our Meals on Wheels program is a public service activity that council funds each year. Services for homeless persons, health services, child care, public safety. The funds could be utilized for like a neighborhood watch type programming. So there's a lot of things the grant funds can be used for public service type activities. When we select activities each year, we have to make sure that the activity meets at least one national objective from HUD, and that is either benefit to the low and moderate income persons, aid in the prevention of slum and blight, or meet an urgent need. The activities also have to meet one of our annual action plan and our 5-year consolidated plan goals and be HUD-approved activity. We look at capacity of city staff, which is myself and my supervisor, Hillary, the amount of the allocation, priorities, and the capacity and expertise of our subrecipient organizations. Some of the costs that we can cover with administrative funds, which are capped at 20% of the annual allocation, employee wages and benefits. Our grant funds support one full-time equivalent, which is myself. Also, administrative costs include administration of the grant awards, travel and training. If we needed to hire a consultant with their assistance, advertising, supplies, and our support of fair housing activities. We're in our 3rd year of our consolidated plan, and our goals for the 5 years from 2023 to 2027 are maintain and increase housing stock, and that includes both ownership and rental properties, public facility and infrastructure projects, public services, homelessness assistance, and economic development. So those are our 5 planning goals in our consolidated plan. So that kind of drives each year of our action plan.
Sherry, if I could ask real quick. So these are the long-term goals, but how many of those have we actually been able to touch?
So far we've met, I believe, 4 each year. in the 2 previous years. So for our current plan year 24 that we're in right now, the maintain and increase housing stock, our MRAP, Emergency Minor Home Repair, that's maintaining existing housing stock. We haven't had any projects that maintains or increases rentals, but we have done assisted multiple nonprofits with public facility projects, which would be the rehabilitation at the Safe House. We helped St. Vincent de Paul with their roof on the Help Center. Tesh is utilizing some funds to make some upgrades at their location. So we've definitely hit that one. Public services, each year we're able to provide that funding to Meals on Wheels at Lake City Center. And this year we're helping United Way with their child care scholarship. In the past, CD8 has been a recipient. Idaho Youth Ranch has received funds. Just quite a few different ones. Homelessness assistance, we have met that one when we're helping make those repairs with our grant funds to those shelters. That's also helping homeless people, so we've been able to meet that goal. Economic development's a little tougher. We have done some of that with NIC, with the college, but we don't have as many requests for funds for those type of projects. In fact, this year, I believe we had about 10 organizations submit proposals and only one was for economic development. So just don't get a lot of proposals for those. So we are a little constrained because we only can provide those grant funds if we receive requests from organizations carrying those activities.
Thank you.
Part of our annual action plan process is we open it up to citizen participation. We hold a public forum before we draft the action plan, seeking input on what the public feels or should be the priorities. We advertised that public forum and the opportunity for our hearing in the Coeur d'Alene Press. We also put it on our CDA TV channel, and which also broadcasts in our City Hall reception area. We put the information out on our city Facebook and website updates, shared flyers, and we have a stakeholder list that I email all of the information to. And then our citizen participation plan sets a 30-day minimum public comment period for our annual action plan, and so we will meet that tonight. This is actually the 33rd day, so we made sure that we more than met that requirement. And we put out a public survey, so we kind of drafted our plan and said, these are some of our funding priorities. What do you think should our priorities be if they're different than what we have? And so we didn't have a huge response, but it was almost double from last year's. We had about 60 people take our survey, and they the ones that did the survey set the priorities. We asked them to list our 5 consolidated plan goals in their order of priority, and they actually matched last year's, and that would be priority 1 would be public facilities and infrastructure projects. 2 would be public services. 3 is to maintain and increase affordable housing. 4, economic development, and 5, homelessness assistance. These are our snapshots, screenshots of our survey responses, the data from that, which shows how they ranked, and that breaks it down just a little further of how they placed them. And then we also asked our survey respondents if they were in support of our emergency minor home repair program, home repair and accessibility improvement program. We funded that program, or in our current year, we fund it at $141,491. We're proposing a slight increase for the upcoming year to, I believe it's 147. And so we asked them if they thought we should maintain the funding, increase it, or decrease it, and 49% of responses said increase the funding, 45% said maintain it, and 5% said to decrease it. We also asked if the survey takers were in support of the fashion that we run our community opportunity grant, and that was overwhelmingly in support of our competitive basis. So that was good news. And then we're on to our draft budget. So for the upcoming year, we're proposing the $10,000 to Lake City Center's Meals on Wheels program, which is a non-competitive grant previously approved by council. And then $146,700 to our emergency minor home repair and accessibility improvement program. $128,072 for our community opportunity grants. That includes our public service activities, which are capped at that 15% of our allocation. And then administration would be $58,199. And that is employee wages and benefits, supplies, advertising, training, all of those things fit into there. So our plan year 2025 total budget is $342,971. That includes some leftover funds from previous plan years, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2024. The extra funds became available thanks to some public facility improvement projects that came in costing less than anticipated, and that's due to the incredible support of the businesses in our community that really support our nonprofit organizations. So we're finding they're estimating the costs, getting a quote to estimate a cost for their proposal, and then when they actually seek the bids to do the projects, they're either getting some of those services for free or just getting really good bids. And so, I mean, that's a great problem to have, that we have funds to reallocate. These are estimated amounts. It is, let's see, $51,973. We still have a couple projects that are nearing completion, so we won't have an exact dollar amount for those reallocated funds, and our HUD representative has advised us that we can draft our budget for the upcoming year, and then once we have the actual numbers, which it could vary about $10,000, it could be less, it could be more, then we can do a minor amendment, and but if we have it in our budget, then we'll be good to go as soon as we have those final numbers. So with that, I can answer any questions you might have on our draft annual action plan that we'd like to submit to HUD for next year, and then we need to open up public comments for our hearing.
Hey, thank you. Questions for Sherry? Mr. Gookin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sherry, going back one slide.
Maybe.
I would like to increase the funding for Lake City Center Meals on Wheels. Can we do that? I would like to do that.
If you would like to do that, we would have to reduce funds from one of the Community Opportunity Grant subrecipients.
What about taking it out of the MRAP program?
We could take it out of MRAP also.
So I would like to go ahead and do that. I don't want to do the Community Opportunity Grants. I think those are fine.
Okay.
But I would like to take it with council's approval. And the reason that I would like to double the amount, because I know that there has been cuts at the federal level to Meals on Wheels. And I don't agree with these cuts, but I think we need to support our seniors and support this program, and if we can do it, I think we should do it.
Okay, we will still be under with 20,000 to Meals on Wheels. Our ad hoc committee was also recommending $20,020 to the school district to expand their McKinney-Vento program, which is also a public service. But those two together would be $40,020, so we're still under that 15% cap that we have to adhere to.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we should be fine with that amount and still meet HUD's requirements that we don't go over.
Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you said that. I was going to say the same thing. Reason being is we see it in real time in this community, people that are struggling to just buy groceries. And the Meals on Wheels, we have people that are no longer eligible for the program. And I mean, it's just the whole idea that we're not going to feed people is pretty terrifying. And so that's such a small amount of this overall budget. I think you all did a good job trying to spread it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I see just in a neighborhood I drive through, I'm not going to name it because it's a private couple that puts out a pantry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the size of a bookcase and cars swarm around it. And so there is a real need. People go into the grocery store and they have one bag of groceries and they've spent like $70 on this little bag. We all know it, we see it, and so I think this program especially has been hit hard for seniors, and I would agree with you and I would support that.
Mr. English.
Well, and it's very important too, not just for the food, but for the contact of people going in and just having that social contact with them for their well-being and make sure that, and seems like last year I tried to do this and Woody turned us down for more. I hope he doesn't fight us this time, so.
I believe that, and Nancy is here, Executive Director of Lake City Center, could answer any other questions you might have on their actual program, but I believe that the $10,000 funds the program for 1 month.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
that would
No
be
questions from me.
2 months with the increased allocation to them.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open a public hearing. I know you guys are all, it's okay, take a breath. So I'm opening a public hearing and I have 2 people signed up, and if you're interested, I can get you to sign up again. So right now, Nancy Phillips, come on down.
Cheers.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council.
We need the witness sworn in.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Get ready. Please raise your right hand and confirm with my statement. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. Good evening, City Council. My name is Nancy Phillips. I'm the Executive Director of Lake City Center, and we have we operate the Meals on Wheels in Coeur d'Alene. This program has delivered more than 45,000 meals each year to homebound seniors in our community. Today, I want to sincerely thank you for the Community Development Block Grant Program, the generous and continuous support that you've given. Each year, the CDBG has given us $10,000 for our Meals on Wheels program, and I want you to know that the funding is truly important and it matters. This year, like you were saying, we need more support than ever. We've been hit with a significant budget cut for our Meals on Wheels program. It's estimating about $60,000 short this annual year. This is a major setback for a small nonprofit like us, and it directly impacts our ability to purchase food, and it keep us from meeting other needs for those that are coming in. The CDBG
grants allow us to continue purchasing food. That's what we use it for. The $10,000 will provide 1 month worth of food for the seniors. This helps us maintain the quality of our meals, and it serves the growing number of seniors in our community. Right now, we serve over 120 seniors just in Coeur d'Alene. So on behalf of the Board of Directors, our staff, our volunteers, and especially our seniors in their community, we thank you for investing in this vital program. Your support through the CDBG program helps us keep doing what we do best by stepping up, serving, and providing meals to the most vulnerable neighbors. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Any questions? Thank you.
And Heather Summers. Welcome, Heather.
Good evening.
And get on tonight. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Good evening, Mayor McEvers and esteemed council members. I'm Heather Summers, and I'm the Executive Director of Elementary Education and Federal Programs for Coeur d'Alene School District. And we have been an applicant for this grant for our McKinney-Vento program for Coeur d'Alene School District. And I thought that perhaps I would just take a moment to tell you what that is if you're not familiar with that term. McKinney-Vento is an act that's in federal law. I'm sorry if I need to speak louder. That ensures that educational stability and access for students experiencing homelessness exists. And really the whole mission of the McKinney-Vento Act is to remove barriers for students so that they can receive an education that's equal to other students in our schools. And those barriers are wide. It immediately certifies a student to have free and reduced lunch. Free lunch, really, immediately. So once a student or their family has been classified as a family experiencing homelessness, then a couple of things kick in immediately for that student. One, they can register in a school with essentially no paperwork, because if you're living in precarious housing, oftentimes you don't have your things. So birth certificates, proof of residency, some of those things we require. We don't require immediately. We do require them eventually, and we oftentimes help to find birth certificates for families who may not have them because they had to leave them behind or never did receive them in the first place. But our goal is students receive their education. Oftentimes, we try to keep a student in their school of origin. So if a family is experiencing homelessness and where they have to live doesn't align with where they were currently going to school, we provide transportation for them to get to and stay in their school of origin until they can get stable housing. So under the McKinney-Vento Act, a child or youth is considered homeless if they lack fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So if they're couch surfing, that's an example. If they're living in a tent, if they're living in a car, it even includes doubling up temporarily with another family due to economic hardship, substandard living conditions at times. So those are all things that we vet with a family when they come to us. The McKinney-Vento Act removes all kinds of barriers for students experiencing homelessness that they often face. Those can include enrollment delays. Some school districts say you cannot enroll in our school unless you can prove that you live in our school district, that you have a birth certificate, and sometimes even immunization records. If you are experiencing homelessness, this act says, get the kids in school, get them fed, and let's just get them there. And then we'll work on these other things, and we help them with that. Transportation, lack of school supplies, clothing, hygiene supplies. Those are all things that we help families with the support of our community, oftentimes. Limited access to services like mental health, meals, those kinds of things we will help with. And really, it's very confidential. We're very careful that other people don't know that this is something that a family is experiencing, helping them maintain their dignity. The goal is to provide consistency, support, and full participation in school for every kiddo, regardless of their housing status. So that's our goal. We do a pretty good job as a school district and as a community here in Coeur d'Alene. I'd say we do more than a pretty good job. We have so many community partners who help in so many ways. Clothing closets, churches that have absolutely beautiful brand new clothing that families can go and access for their kids. But one of the things that we continually lack is adequate housing opportunities. And we know this, you know this from hearing all the other things that happen in our community. You know this just from sometimes a family with 2 working adults struggle to have adequate housing at times. And so that is the thing that is the most difficult for us. Emergent housing, temporary safe shelter provided during housing crisis is important. It protects people's safety and well-being. It stabilizes our family and youth. It allows a stable place for them to sleep. Prevents educational disruption, because if you're bouncing from house to house, it's difficult to get kids where they need to go, and sometimes parents have to make those hard decisions about food and shelter or an education. And anytime we can do anything to remove that decision, we want to. Connects families to services. If we can get them into an emergent stable housing, we can oftentimes get our community partners involved with those families to help them get what they need to find stable housing. And hopefully breaks that cycle of homelessness. So, and I only have 3 minutes. I'm sorry, I'll be quick. This is probably the most important part. So why do we need this emergent housing? Why is this something that's so important for these families? Many shelters and transitional housing programs restrict boys over the age of 12 due to a combination of safety concerns, legal constraints, and sometimes facility limitations. So oftentimes a family who has 4 children, if one of those children is a boy over the age of 12, there's nowhere for them to go. St. Vincent de Paul, UGM, they don't take boys that are over the age of 12. So where do they go? Now a family has to determine, do I break up my family and send my boy somewhere else? Or how do we stay together? Currently, it's very difficult because emergent housing is expensive. So this community block grant for our families in Coeur d'Alene School District who are experiencing homelessness is really vital for families to stay together. There's all kinds of other reasons why boys over 12, sometimes there's licensing agreements. Sometimes if it's safe passage or a place where domestic violence or other types of violence, we're trying to help those families or those women, they're not able to house young boys in that facility. Sometimes it's just outdated assumptions about boys of that age, but it's real and it exists. And just resource limitations. You're going to take families with small children first. Those small children can't fend for themselves, for lack of better terminology. So it forces families to separate. And so this grant would help us with the goal of it being short-term emergency housing while we're looking for places for families to stay together. Coeur d'Alene School District currently serves 248 students and families, and this program would support about 35 of those families, about 14.1%, if we looked at our last year's statistics. So we're just so thankful to be included in this proposed grant. We hope that it moves forward, and we hope that we get to be a part of providing safe, healthy housing for a full family that gets to stay together and gets to go to school every day. Questions?
Questions, council?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Didn't sign up? Okay. I'm going to pass this down to you. Thank you. Scott Ferguson, welcome.
Hi there. Good evening.
I'm sorry, I'll need
Oh,
to
yes.
swear you in as well. Sorry.
Absolutely. I knew that. I saw that already.
I almost
was ready.
forgot to. Okay, please confirm with a yes or I affirm at the end of my statement. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Scott Ferguson, and I am the Executive Director for St. Vincent de Paul. It's a pleasure to, if I have not met you, meet you this evening, but wanted to say thank you. This opportunity was just a great way to introduce myself as the new Executive Director, but also just to start with a giant thank you, because I have been on that roof that has been funded, and I appreciate those efforts to keep our buildings up to code and allowing our buildings to have no barriers for our clients. But I would say tonight, thank you, especially for this investment, for the Community Block Grant, to ensure to remove barriers for the women and children for our women's homeless shelter. The shelter that is almost 22 years old, that continues to serve the citizens of Kootenai County, the women and children who are in desperate need of shelter when they have nowhere else to go. When they come to the Help Center looking for opportunities to be served. And we have the opportunity to do just that. An example of that would be that in the past year, we've been able to serve 125 women with our shelter services, and an even better opportunity to ensure that of 125, 109 of those women and children and those family members were able to find stable, permanent housing. This resource is an incredible opportunity to ensure that the women and children who have need receive the resources they do need to feel that they have an opportunity for hope, for opportunity for success and self-sufficiency. So we are so honored that we're selected as a sub-recipient of this year's grant, because what we have the opportunity to do is to say yes, to be a beacon of hope for folks when they come to our front door, when that's the hardest step they have to make, is to ask for help when they have no other options. So we appreciate the opportunity that the flooring that will be provided this year will continue to sustain this housing unit, this homeless shelter, for years to come. It's an investment not only in the building, but in the women and children that access this precious resource. So on behalf of St. Vincent de Paul, and on behalf of our organization, I just want to say thank you for the long and outstanding relationship that we have had with this council and the members of it. And I appreciate the opportunity to say thank you in person for this investment in our community, in our citizens, and the opportunity to provide hope once again. So thank you very much.
Any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott, for coming out.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing here.
Oh,
and
you have
look-
one more, Mr. Mayor. One more.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No pressure. No pressure.
Did Jody swear in?
No, I didn't.
All right, Lisa, you're going to be sworn in. You have to tell the truth.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your full name for the record.
My name is Lisa A. Brock. Yes, and I am accompanied by Emerson White. Council members and Mayor, thank you so much for hearing us tonight. I am building manager for the Grove, which is the independent senior housing apartment complex on the Orchard Ridge campus. We have independent apartments, and then we have assisted living and memory care. We have applied for a community block grant for our independent living apartment complex, which has 154 units. The goal of the project is to replace 156 electrical panels in our building, the independent living building. The anticipated outcome is safety from expired electrical systems and fire hazard for the 154 residents that reside there. We've chosen to address this particular need because it is necessary to do so. The current electrical panels are out of code and past their useful lifespan. For the safety of our 154 residents, the panels must be updated and replaced. They have become a fire hazard and a potential electrical outage problem. The average client resident in our population is female, 79 years old, with an income of $21,296 per year. All of our clients' residents are over 62 years of age and are low income. If the electrical panels are not replaced soon, not only will the building begin to not pass inspections, but it will be a safety hazard if our building has to have a fire, if our building was to have a fire or be shut down for some reason. All of those low-income seniors would have to find housing immediately. The project complements other agencies who work with this population in the fact that safe and affordable housing is provided for vulnerable adults, taking that burden off of other agencies or groups. So basically, that's why we're here. I manage that big building with 154 apartments. We love our community. It's like the best kept secret in Coeur d'Alene. Isn't it, Emerson? There's only 5 of us that manage that big, huge building. We're like the Olympic rings. And these people are so wonderful. And so we are honored to be able to apply for this grant. And I thank you for listening to what I had to say. Any questions?
Do you know when that building was built?
In the 70s.
70s.
1979.
Those were the
Things
good
are
years.
starting to age out in there,
Yes.
besides the people.
Thanks, you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So should I ask one more? Sherry, I'm going to close the public hearing and move on. Sherry?
So
you
at
learn
this
anything?
point, we will take the comments that were made tonight and incorporate them into our draft annual action plan. We'll make the budget changes that council has requested. We'll increase Meals on Wheels non-competitive grant to $20,000 for the upcoming year and reduce our MRAP by the $10,000. And we'll get that all wrapped up and sent over to HUD for their 45-day review process. So if we can get a motion to approve, we would sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I will make a motion to approve submittal of the Community Development Block Grant CDBG Plan Year 2025 Annual Action Plan.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, we're not done. Move to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-2061F to communicate with legal counsel for the city to discuss legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated, and pursuant to Idaho Code IC Section 74-2061J and 74-206A1A to deliberate on a labor contract offer or to formulate a counter offer.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Thank y'all. We are in executive session.
Thank you.
Intermission, okay, halfway through,
Recess.
okay.